So, you want to make a Renaissance Festival act. Maybe you've been going to festivals your whole life, you want to join the fun. Maybe you are an established performer in another space and you're looking to adjust your show to go into the Renaissance Faire circuit. Well, whatever it may be, I am here to talk to you about what I think makes a successful Renaissance Faire act. Covered in cat hair. This is all your fault, my dude. This is all your fault. Yes, you hang out with your shadow heart kicker and just be a boy. Here's that good boy. Okay. So, to give you some perspective, I've been performing at Renaissance Festival since I was 6 years old. I have seen dozens of acts from the very good to the not so good. Even before I hit the digital lottery, I've been performing my show, Jacques the Whipper, for more than a decade at shows around the country. And all this is just my opinion. It is not the gospel, but it'll give you a sense for how to start building your show, whether you're just starting out or if you want to adjust your show for Renaissance Festival performing, if you're already working other gigs. So, with all of that in mind, let's talk about what I think are the three main pillars of Renaissance Faire performing: and skill, comedy, and character. Skill. What can you do that the people in your audience can't do? Whether it's singing, acting, circus skills, dancing, something to make them say, ooh, that's impressive. Comedy. How funny are you? And then character. What is your personality on stage? And most importantly, does your personality on stage change from what your personality is in real life? The best acts, in my opinion, use a combination of all three of these things that will help each other, aid each other, and help make a show that's greater than the sum of its parts. I'm going to use my own show as an example, and this is not me saying that I am the greatest Renaissance Faire act on the circuit and you should absolutely do what I did. However, I have been able to build a successful Renaissance Faire act even before I hit the digital lottery. And so this is what worked for me and may help you. So to give you some background and perspective, I started performing Jacques the Whipper in 2008. I was 20 years old. I was still very green in terms of performing. Now, sure, I had grown up in the circus, grown up performing around performance. I had been doing solo work since 2006, doing mostly street performing, but I still had a lot to learn, and especially when it came to my skills. My whip skills were they were okay. Nothing special. I was a competent whip cracker, but I would say if someone wanted to get to where I was at that point in time in terms of skill, practice a few hours a week for, I would say, 4 to 6 months, and you'd be about where I was when I first started performing Jacques the Whipper. Comedy, I was 20. I had a few jokes. A lot of them were recycled jokes that I had heard before. Not great material, I'll be very blunt. Where I felt like I could be different and be unique was in character. So that was what I leaned on hard. Being Jacques the Whipper, especially drawing on the mustache, being Jacques the Whipper helped people understand that the show was silly, that it was meant to be laughed at. It was not, come out here and crack whips and I'm the greatest whip cracker of all time. I did say that, but because I was French, people knew that that was a joke. And I noticed this whenever I try to do just Jack the Whipper. If I try to do just a cowboy show, a lot of the jokes didn't translate as well, pun fully intended. But I would say the same lines, and they would get a much lighter laugh when I was just me in a cowboy shirt, because when it was just me in a cowboy shirt, it was just Jack Lepiar's dialed up to 11, whereas Jacques the Whipper was a whole different mindset that I had to get into. That made the show work. So, if my comedy was a 4 out of 10 normally, drawing on a fake French mustache made it a 6 out of 10. And just so you know, I tried that. So the first 2 days that I ever did Jacques the Whipper solo, I did not draw on the mustache. And let me tell you, when I drew on that mustache for day 3 and people suddenly started laughing a whole lot more, I realized that we had something here. But the other thing about becoming Jacques the Whipper is that the character opens the door to more comedy. So it started with easy things like making bathroom jokes whenever I said wee, all the way up to the focus bit that I know many of you have seen that I think is one of, if not the funniest thing I have ever written in my life.
But here's the problem with the proper French accent. Is the problem with if you do a proper French accent is the people they have a hard time understanding you. And the problem is they need to concentrate on the words. They need to focus, all right? And this is the problem. When the audience has to focus, it creates all sorts of problems. I don't want the audience to have to focus, all right? You understand what I'm saying, Seth? Yes, but Seth, you need to fuck us now, all right? This is the problem.
The great thing about the accented character as well is that you can drop that accent when you hit a punchline to accentuate the punchline. Once again, pun fully intended.
I want you to feel a penis. I want you to feel a penis. I want everyone here to feel a penis, and I want to remind you that children should not be at this show.
Now, over the years, as my skills got better, as my jokes got better, I kind of naturally found myself easing off the French character just a little bit. Part of that was because doing an accent for the entire show was getting a little tiring, and part of that was also because I felt like being French was becoming the entirety of the show, and it was starting to limit what I could do besides just being French. But nowadays, you look at my show, and the tricks, the character, and the comedy all inform one another and all help one another. So let's use, I think, what most of you know me for, which is the musical whipping, which, by the way, is only like 5 minutes of my show. And the musical whipping is all three of these pillars encompassed in one routine. So you have whip cracking, that's a skill. You have singing, that's a skill. You have improv, that's a skill. And hopefully the improv is funny when I make up the lyrics, so that's comedy. And then when I am desperate, when I don't know what rhyme to make up, I can just lean back and make a French joke. And that's the character helping out the tricks and the comedy. So you think about your favorite Renaissance Faire act that you've seen, or even just a good Renaissance Faire act that you've seen recently, chances are they have some combination of these three pillars. Now, the combinations may change. One act might be a 6 out of 10 in skill and a 7 out of 10 in comedy, or another act might be an 8 out of 10 character, but then only maybe a 2 out of 10 in skill. They lean more heavily on one thing and less on another. But they all have certain aspects of those three pillars, most of the time. Because the other theory that I have is that if your skill or comedy, or your skill and character, or your character and comedy, or whatever combination, if two of your three pillars are just so off the charts good, you can completely ignore the third. So the example that I'd like to use for this is another whip act, is Adam Winrich, aka Adam Crack. People love to point out, I have set 4 Guinness World Records. Adam Crack has set 34. 3, 4, 2 digits. That's like almost 10 times as many Guinness World Records as I have, or have set. The man's good, all right? The man practices multiple hours a day, every day that he's not performing. The man has instructed or inspired basically every single other whip act that is on the Renaissance Faire circuit, myself included. A lot of tricks I didn't even know existed until I saw Adam Winrich doing that. I'm like, oh, wow, you can do that with a whip? All right, cool. Adam just does it better than all of us. Adam's skill is a 10 out of 10. Simply put, enough said. And what that allows him to do is lean heavily on that aspect of his performance so that he doesn't need to draw on a mustache and talk in a fake French accent. He still has to be funny, but even he'll tell you that skill is what allowed him to initially make his show while the comedy caught up. You can see the opposite as far as where I'm concerned, is that I started with the character.
I got whipped in. Okay, all right. Note to self, I cannot twerk. I am French. All right, one more.
And then the comedy and the skill caught up to the character. And you can still see that origin in our shows today. We've both been performing for more than a decade, so our shows are very well polished. But my show is still very much about the character and the comedy. The skills are ancillary. The skills are not the main part of the show. Adam's show, the skills are the main part of the show. There's no better way to do it. There's no right way to do it. It's just both of us leaning into our strengths. So yeah, skill, comedy, and character. 3 things to think about as you make your Renaissance Festival act. Good luck with it, and go make some people smile. Cheers.
Toss a coin to your whipper, or maybe a 20, or maybe a 20.